Hi everyone. We are once again using the More from Magnolia cookbook by Alyssa Torrey. Today we are going to make a peach cake with a cinnamon sugar topping. This is a cake that you can have for breakfast. Well, I'm gonna be honest, I don't see anything wrong with having cake for breakfast, but this one is actually a breakfast cake. Super simple and delicious as always. So we're gonna start by sifting our dry ingredients. I have 2 cups of flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and a teaspoon of salt. I am using a little mesh strainer to sift, but if you have a big sifter where you squeeze the handle, that'll work even better. I just don't have one of those. So I just put a little bit in my mesh strainer, gently shake it, and it all goes through and it looks nice and fine like this. You want to sift your dry ingredients when you're making a cake because it makes a very light and fluffy cake. Dense, heavy cakes are not enjoyable to eat. So I'm going to shake it once more. Shake it real gently. If you shake hard, you end up with flour everywhere. All right. Let me get a little bit out. Don't worry, my hands are clean. Okay, we're done. Now, the wet ingredients. I like making this cake because the ingredients are really simple. You don't need a lot of extra equipment. We have a cup of sugar. We're going to add 2 eggs. Now, the eggs need to be room temperature. That means you just need to set them out for about half an hour. That way they'll mix up better in the cake. So you put 1 egg in. Oops, sorry. Where's my whisk? Here's my whisk. And whisk it gently in the sugar. Then you're going to crack the other egg. Toss it right on in. Mix it around. You can use an electric mixer. If you have an electric mixer, that would work just fine and actually make things faster. But I'm using a whisk because I need the exercise. Not that I'm exactly burning a lot of calories. We are going to add in 2/3 of a cup sunflower seed oil. Now, if you don't have sunflower seed oil, that's okay. You can use corn oil, you can use canola oil, you can use vegetable oil. It just needs to be a cooking oil of some kind. So you see how everything is nice and pale and thick. Then we are going to toss in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Remember to pour your vanilla over something because I always spill. I'm messy. See, look at that. I just dripped as I was doing it. So we're going to whisk in the vanilla. Now, for the cake, to make sure it stays nice and light, you don't just dump in all the dry ingredients. That will make the cake too thick and heavy and you won't be able to mix it correctly. So instead, you're going to add in half of the dry ingredients. Gently whisk. You don't want to whisk quickly because you will end up with a tough cake. So gently whisk it until it is almost entirely combined. And then over here I have half a cup of milk. I'm sorry, not half a cup. I have a cup of milk that is pretty close to room temperature. I'm gonna pour half of it in. And I'm going to gently whisk it together. If you whisk quickly, the milk will splash and you will have a mess on your hands. No one wants that. So we're gonna whisk. And it takes a while, you just have to be patient. Then once it's combined, add in the rest of your flour, whisk gently, because remember, we don't want a tough cake. And then add in the rest of the milk and keep stirring until it is smooth and blended. Now that our cake batter is made, it is time to work with the peaches. Confession, this recipe is actually called a sliced apple cake, but I do not have cans of sliced apples. I have cans of sliced peaches, so we're gonna make it a peach cake and it'll work just fine. You need to drain the juice. You know what? I realized to get another bowl. Silly me. I'm gonna grab a little bowl because when the peaches are drained, you have to put them somewhere. So they're gonna go right in here, and then we are going to finish. You don't need to rinse the peaches, you just wanna make sure most of the juice is off of them. So that looks good. We'll put them in here, and I did not wash the strainer in between sifting the flour. That's fine. You don't have to make everything perfectly clean. Now in here I have half a cup of sugar and a teaspoon of cinnamon, and I am going to sprinkle about half of that mixture over the peaches, and I am going to gently stir the mixture together. You need to do it gently because if you do it quickly, cinnamon and sugar everywhere. And you'll also break the peaches, and we don't want them to be broken. We just want to gently stir so they are nice and coated. Now, to bake this cake, you have two choices. I am going to use a 10-inch tube pan, a 10-inch tube pan that I have greased and floured. If you do not have a tube pan, that's okay. You can actually use two 9x13 loaf pans. They don't have to be glass. They can be the disposable metal kind that you buy at the grocery store. But I'm gonna do a tube pan because I think it looks pretty that way. And you know me, I like pretty. So the first thing we're gonna do is, let me borrow this, stir it up. You're gonna take a little bit of the batter and you're gonna put it in the bottom of the pan. I'm just using a ladle. Knock it off the bottom. You don't want a lot of the batter. You just want enough because we are going to layer some of the peaches along the bottom of the pan, and we want them to kind of stick in the batter. That way when you dump the cake out, you will see these really pretty peaches at the top of the cake. So that looks pretty good. And now I'm just going to take a few peaches, and remember, yes, my hands are clean. And I'm going to lay them, let me move the bowl closer, along the bottom of the pan. And they don't have to be perfect. You can just kind of drop them in. So I want a nice big one right there. And the rest of the peaches, I'm going to put in the batter along with the cinnamon sugar mixture. Make sure you scrape it all out of the bowl, because it tastes really yummy. And then you are gently going to stir the peaches into the batter. And here comes Miss Maddie, my golden retriever. She was busy working on her dental chew. I gave it to distract her, and now she's done and she wants to know what I'm doing. Maddie, you're a pig. It's not for you, but she'll try to eat it anyway. Then we're going to gently put the batter into the pan. Now, tube pans are a little tricky because if you're not careful, you'll end up pouring it in, and the batter will go everywhere. Always make sure you scrape the bowl so it's nice and clean. We want to get all the cake batter in there. And then I'm going to actually scoop out the little bit that was in here. Now, one of my peaches came out funny. I'm going to move it over here. You kind of want to make sure your peaches end up spread evenly amongst the batter. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to take the rest of the cinnamon and sugar, and I'm going to sprinkle it evenly over the top of the cake. You want a nice crunchy, crunchy layer. Because when you bake a tube cake, the bottom of the cake is actually going to be the top. So this will actually be a nice crunchy bottom on it. Now the cake will bake at 325 degrees for about 70 minutes. You need to put a cake tester in it. Usually I use a long thin knife, or if you have a like a barbecue skewer, like for kebabs, that works too. You stick it all the way in, and if you pull it out and there are no crumbs attached, you know it's done. So this is what it looks like. Well, actually I can't tip it. It looks good. I'll see in about 70